She's one of the leaders of French-speaking student clubs, a new associative network founded last month in Cairo by the Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie. Marina Eyongvei is a doctoral student in economics, passionate about defending the environment. And she decided to found a club to raise awareness among Gabonese youth about these fundamental issues. She shared her vision and hopes with Laurent Sestras and Nicolas Marjoran.
Hello, you are a PhD student in economics. You come from Libreville. This is the first time that Africa is hosting the COP in Egypt. What do you expect from the COP?
Merci. De cette COP,
Thank you. From this COP, African and Gabonese youth in particular, we really expect that problems concerning the environment and its stakes at the level of our countries, our states,
concernant l'environnement et ces enjeux au niveau de nos pays, de nos États, soient pris en compte. Parce que habituellement,
will be taken into account, because usually problems are raised abroad by the Western countries, and we don't necessarily have the same problems. So our real expectations are that our realities in Africa should be taken into account at the international level and within this COP.
With more African solutions?
With more African solutions, indeed.
You studied economics. When did you first become interested in the environment?
My interest in the environment goes back to about 5 years ago. As a young person living in Africa, especially in Central Africa, environmental issues are relatively new because we have a tropical climate.
Un climat tropical, donc nous ne sommes pas directement impactés par les...
So we are not directly impacted or vulnerable to climate change.
Nous ne sommes pas vulnérables en tant que tels au changement climatique. Il y a d'autres régions.
In other regions, this vulnerability is felt in terms of drought and soil degradation.
Des sols. Donc cette question est un peu nouvelle.
This issue is a bit new and interests us a bit more because we are major players in, not reduction, but the limitation of environmental degradation and carbon absorption issues.
Également dans les questions d'absorption de carbone, nous sommes des acteurs majeurs, d'où
we are major players, hence the interest in recent years for the youth of Central Africa, the Congo Basin region, to try to take ownership of environmental issues to make better decisions and to predict the future better, because we are the future decision makers of tomorrow, and we need to know how to manage our nations and our states and resources to maintain a certain balance in the ecosystem.
Is it economics that led you towards the environmental issues?
Oui, je dirais que c'est l'économie qui m'a emmené à l'environnement.
Economics brought me to the environment because my first contact with environmental issues came from my economics studies, because in the economics program we have subjects and specialties linked to the environment.
Nous avons des matières, nous avons des spécialités liées à l'environnement.
My first contact with these issues came from my training in economics, but also today, and even more so from the research center to which I belong, which is the Center for Public Economics, which deals with public policy issues, and in particular issues related to the environment and poverty.
You mentioned poverty and the environment. What are the major challenges for Gabon in this fight against climate change and the environment?
Merci. Les enjeux majeurs pour l'environnement.
Thank you. The major environmental challenges, and above all those directly linked to poverty, are indigenous populations' constraints in conserving our forests.
Pour la conservation de nos forêts. Parce qu'il faut le dire, au niveau du Gabon, les populations autochtones se ressourcent.
In Gabon, the indigenous people use the forests and cut down areas to cultivate crops and obtain the wood they need to build their homes.
Se ravitailler en bois nécessaire à la construction de logements. Alors, si il faut que l'on arrête.
So if we have to stop destroying forests, what do we propose in return to allow these populations to, how can I put it, satisfy their needs?
Comment dire, de satisfaire leurs besoins. Donc, il faudrait, en retour, que ces populations-là aient
So in return, these populations should have the necessary funds to survive if they have to stop cutting down trees essential for their daily lives.
Des arbres qui sont nécessaires à leur vie au quotidien.
This is really what is at stake for the people of Gabon.
Pour les populations au niveau du Gabon.
Is the environment also about economics, about money?
Est-ce que l'environnement est une affaire d'argent?
Is the environment about money? No, because it is precisely about the need for money.
Le besoin d'argent, capitalisme-là.
This economic capitalism has led us to environmental degradation, and today the objective is to reduce this need for money to preserve the environment.
Au besoin d'argent afin de préserver cet environnement. Donc l'environnement n'est pas une question d'argent.
So the environment is not a question of money. It's a question of survival. Because if we continue with our habits of wanting to satisfy luxurious and tertiary needs, we are heading straight for the destruction of humanity. So we have to go back to the basics, satisfying primary needs, which will reduce and slow down the degradation of the environment.
You mentioned the Gabonese forest, one of the world's largest forests and an extraordinary long for the planet. Should Western countries contribute more to its preservation?
Bien sûr, les Occidentaux
Of course, Westerners should think about how to preserve this forest, this Gabonese forest, and more generally the forest of the Congo Basin, to maintain a balance in the ecosystem. And this is precisely the major challenge today of our states. We are asked to preserve, but in return we need to see the interest of preserving. Of course, the interest is general, but for those states that deprive themselves, there should be consistent and, above all, tangible return, because the whole point is not to grant money, but we must also ensure that this funding is channeled properly. And that's the major issue today, not just granting funding, but ensuring that this funding is properly channeled so that the population can benefit from it, and making sure that the poverty gap within these countries does not become wider.
There is a lot of talk about corruption as a factor in aggravating climate change problems. What do you think about this?
La corruption, c'est un problème mondial.
Corruption is a global problem, and indeed corruption essentially reduces the effect of certain policies. It disorients the objectives.
Ça désoriente les objectifs, et c'est un facteur sur lequel on devrait.
And it's a scourge that we should really work on, especially in our states which have high corruption rates.
Donc, des financements liés à l'environnement.
So, environment-related funding should be better managed and, above all, better monitored. States should act as police to keep an eye on environmental funding so that the affected populations are the first beneficiaries of this money. There should be a follow-up so that this is actually done on the ground.
You are head of a student club intended to raise awareness about environmental issues. What about governance, creating awareness, and the need to audit and control? Will it be part of this global reflection?
Oui, à terme, ça fera partie de cette réflexion.
Yes, in the long run, it will be part of this global reflection because the young people of today are the future decision makers of tomorrow. Education and awareness must therefore start
Donc, faudrait déjà qu'ils prennent conscience à leur niveau.
At an early age. Young people should be aware of what is at stake in environmental matters, and above all the impact that this will have, the responsibility of each person in the governance of environmental issues.
Governance
of the populations, governance in the policies, the public policies that will be put in place. For all these policies to achieve their objectives, we need decision makers with integrity, who are well trained and available to give their best.